The likelihood of getting to a beach like this anytime soon? Wouldn't count on it, seems to be the tone the government wants to send out today. Scenes from last summer when holidaymakers were allowed to venture abroad might not be repeated again. The Defence Secretary not making holiday plans for himself just yet.
Well, I haven't booked my summer holiday. The Prime Minister has commissioned a task force that will report in the beginning of April, both on foreign holidays and passporting around vaccines. I think we should see how how that goes. I think we should also not forget that just across the Channel we're seeing, unfortunately, a wave of growing infections, and that's got to be worrying.
But there are loud grumbles coming from MPs in his own party who say continuing lockdown would be excessive and disproportionate. They're also warning that this week they'll vote against the government's plan to extend coronavirus restrictions. At a Sikh temple today, vaccines are being given to people who are eligible. It comes as there's a new daily record of 900,000 jabs being given in a single day. The NHS saying that breaks down into 27 people being vaccinated every second in England.
We've heard that vaccine rollout is going extraordinarily well. Does that mean that we can go on holiday?
No. But simply because the vaccine rollout is going so well, what we don't want to do is risk it. And by risking it, that's things like bringing in new variants, and particularly the South African variant, which has been shown to make the vaccines work less well, particularly AstraZeneca, which obviously is a big part of our vaccination programme.
The UK has vaccine numbers that countries in neighbouring Europe are nowhere near yet. Instead, a cruel return to lockdown because of a third wave. Another significant rise of cases leading to more hospitalisations and sadly deaths. Earlier in the pandemic, what happened in Europe then started to occur here. So should we be really concerned about the third wave that's happening in Europe now?
Well, it doesn't mean anything in terms of that's going to come here, because the current wave in Europe is the wave that we just had over Christmas and January. And many people were saying, it's spreading in Europe, be careful, in 5, 6, 7 weeks, you might have a wave as it takes over. And that's exactly what we've seen, is now somewhere between 50 and 70% of cases in Europe are the Kent strain.
For some Germans, exhausted by the prospect of another lockdown, they're escaping to Mallorca after the German Centre for Disease Control removed the Balearic Islands from a list of risk areas. This flying in the face of the cautious message the German government sent out recently, warning that Easter may not see restrictions ease as planned. Back in the UK, getting away may be on the minds of many, but like this advert, we'll probably have to dream about it and act it out in our homes for a while yet.
Well, a little earlier, I spoke to travel consultant Paul Charles. His organisation developed a traffic light system for international travel with tougher restrictions for riskier red countries. It was adopted by the EU last year and is now being looked at by the government's travel task force here. I asked him what the impact would be on the industry if the ban on non-essential travel were to continue.
The industry has again been thrown from pillar to post. It really is in a state of limbo at the moment because government ministers can't seem to agree on the position going forward for this summer. On the one hand, you have a minister saying, don't book a holiday. On the other, you have another saying, well, actually, it may be possible from May the 17th. And indeed, that is the Prime Minister's roadmap. So which is it? And this turmoil is leading to an up-down of bookings, which makes it very difficult for businesses to plan.
So when you hear a Secretary of State saying, we cannot be reckless, we can't risk importing new variants, that must send chills through your industry and for people who are involved in it.
There is a way forward which would enable safe and responsible travel to take place this summer, but which also acknowledges the need for public health to be a priority. And they know it. And I wish they would come out and say what the options are.
So you have devised this traffic light system. Tell us how it works, and have you been having conversations with government about it?
Well, last August, I developed the system, which is very simple. It's a red, amber, green traffic light system that gives consumers an indication of which countries are more likely to be put on the travel corridor list or the corridor removed. But essentially, it offered guidance to consumers so they could see, based on infections data, which countries were likely to be no-go and which countries were those most likely to be visited and safe. And in fact, the European Commission, out of that traffic light system, developed their own traffic lights last November, which have been used ever since. I have mentioned it many times to the UK government. They have looked at it, and I hope now they finally get round to introduce something like this, because it would be a godsend for many people this summer.
The problem is the COVID infection rate can change very quickly. So if you are in a so-called green country and it suddenly changes to red, that's not going to be very helpful, is it?
Yes, the table is a guide, and the government, I'm sure, with all its resources, can come up with something similar, as the EU has done, which enables it to provide clarity to consumers and give them maybe a week or 2 weeks notice of any changes. The problem last summer was the rapid change, the 24-hour notice, sometimes 36-hour notice, but the very quick notice in which consumers had to either buy a more expensive flight to get home or face the consequences of quarantine.
Surely ministers are just being responsible by showing caution. They can't give you the clarity you're seeking right now. We've seen the effects of lifting lockdowns too early. So it's a difficult situation they're in.
Well, I think if you look at other countries, they are giving clarity to their travel sector in some cases. Look at Israel, which has created a special travel corridor with Greece, for example. It's a small example, but an indication of what can be done with like-minded countries. And I believe that the Global Travel Task Force is now looking at these sorts of measures. So it could propose pilot schemes from May the 17th between the UK and like-minded countries, which have got good vaccination programs being rolled out. I'm talking about the US, Singapore, Israel. I think the government can do this from May the 17th and allow some travel.
Okay, Paul Charles, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.